Why do some relationships stick with you long after they end, especially with avoidant partners who struggle to get emotionally close? The answer has nothing to do with being weak or making bad choices. It's about understanding the deep emotional patterns that create these powerful bonds with avoidant individuals. When you can't let go of an avoidant partner, you're caught in one of the most powerful emotional traps, getting love sometimes, but not always. Avoidants give affection, attention, and care at random times, flooding you one day, then disappearing the next. Think about a slot machine that occasionally delivers a jackpot. The unpredictable wins don't make people quit. They create addiction. Your mind finds uncertain rewards way more exciting than steady ones. With avoidant partners, those rare moments of real connection feel like hitting the jackpot because they're so uncommon and unexpected from someone who typically keeps their distance. Most avoidant individuals have real inner battles about getting close. They want connection, but fear losing themselves or getting rejected. Avoidants come closer when they feel safe, then back away when intimacy feels overwhelming. Their hot and cold behavior comes from these deep tensions, not from games or manipulation. For you, these moments of closeness from an avoidant feel extra special because you worked hard for them through patience and understanding. Your mind sees their rare openness as proof that you're special. I'm the one who can reach this avoidant when others can't. But something deeper is happening with avoidant relationships. Often, your struggle to let go of an avoidant shows your own emotional patterns and old wounds. People who crave constant reassurance find themselves drawn to avoidant partners, creating what experts call the anxious avoidant trap. This attraction to avoidance happens below your awareness. You're pulled toward avoidant relationships that feel familiar, even when that familiarity comes from childhood experiences of inconsistent care or emotional distance. The avoidant partner becomes a mirror for your earliest relationship experiences. The struggle gets worse because leaving an avoidant feels like abandoning not just your current partner, but also the hurt child inside you who believes they must prove they deserve love through never giving up on emotionally unavailable people. Your body gets used to the emotional ups and downs of avoidant relationships. The waiting and relief cycle with an avoidant creates chemical responses similar to addiction. When your avoidant partner pulls away, your stress shoots up. When they come back, even briefly, your system floods with relief and reward chemicals. Over time, your body craves these intense emotional swings that come with loving an avoidant. Steady, consistent relationships might actually feel boring or strange because your system has learned that emotional chaos with avoidance equals normal. The biological impact of avoidant relationships runs deeper than most people realize. Your stress hormones become chronically elevated from the constant uncertainty about where you stand with an avoidant. Your sleep patterns might get disrupted as your mind races through scenarios about what your avoidant partner is thinking or feeling. This chronic stress from avoidant relationships affects your immune system, making you more susceptible to illness and exhaustion. Your body stays in a state of fight or flight with an avoidant, never fully relaxing because it's always anticipating the next emotional shift or withdrawal. The addiction to these emotional highs and lows with avoidance also affects your decision-making abilities. When you're constantly flooded with stress hormones and then relief chemicals from an avoidance behavior, your brain struggles to think clearly about the relationship. You might find yourself making choices you wouldn't normally make, staying longer than feels healthy with an avoidant, or compromising your values in ways that surprise you. Avoidant partners have a unique way of making you feel simultaneously chosen and rejected. When an avoidant shows you affection, it feels more valuable than love from someone who gives it freely. This scarcity mindset keeps you hooked on the avoidant's unpredictable emotional availability. The avoidant's emotional distance triggers something primal in your attachment system. Your brain interprets their withdrawal as a threat to your survival, activating desperate attempts to reconnect. This isn't dramatic thinking. It's how your nervous system was wired to respond to inconsistent caregiving, which is exactly what avoidant relationships provide. Now let's explore one of the biggest reasons you can't let go of an avoidant: the intoxicating dream of transformation. You become convinced that with enough love, patience, and understanding, you can help this avoidant overcome their emotional walls and create the relationship you want. This dream becomes powerful with avoidance because it has some truth. Avoidant individuals can become more open through secure relationships, but this change must come from inside the avoidant. It can't happen through outside pressure or the force of someone else's love. The dream becomes harmful when you mistake what your avoidant could be for what they are, putting your energy into who this avoidant partner might become rather than accepting who they are right now. You see small moments of progress from your avoidant as proof that complete change is coming soon, keeping you trapped in cycles of hope and disappointment. Many people drawn to avoidance experience what experts call helper's high, the good feeling that comes from being needed and possibly healing an avoidant person. This can become addictive as your sense of worth gets tied to your ability to break through an avoidant's walls. Here's something surprising. The difficulty of loving an avoidant can actually become comfortable. The constant challenge of reaching an avoidant gives you purpose and identity. You become the patient one, the understanding one, or the one who never gives up on avoidance. This role, while draining, can feel safer than the vulnerability needed in more emotionally open relationships. Secure relationships require you to be fully seen and known, which can feel scary for those who've learned that love equals struggle with avoidance. With an avoidant partner, you can hide behind being the pursuer, never having to fully look at your own ability to be intimate and emotionally available. This pattern often connects to your family of origin. Maybe you grew up with an avoidant parent or caregiver where love felt conditional, or where you had to work hard to get attention and affection. Perhaps you learned early that your role in relationships was to be the giver, the understanding one, the person who could handle an avoidant's emotional distance. These early lessons with avoidant caregivers shape how you approach adult relationships. You might not even realize that you're recreating familiar dynamics from childhood. The avoidant partner feels like home because this type of relationship matches what your nervous system learned to expect from love. Breaking these patterns requires recognizing that what feels familiar with avoidance isn't necessarily what's healthy. Your body might resist relationships that offer consistent love and emotional availability because they feel foreign compared to the unpredictable nature of avoidant love. There's also a mental trap called the sunk cost fallacy that's particularly strong with avoidance. After putting months or years into trying to create closeness with an avoidant partner, leaving feels like admitting defeat and wasting your emotional investment in reaching them. You tell yourself, I've come this far with this avoidant. They've shown glimpses of who they can be. I just need to try a little longer. This thinking keeps you stuck in cycles with avoidance that may never change because you're making decisions based on what you've already invested in the avoidant rather than what's actually happening now. This brings you to something fascinating about avoidant relationships: the addiction to hope. Hope, while usually good, can become harmful when it stops you from accepting an avoidance reality. With avoidant partners, every small gesture of affection or openness brings back hope that real change is about to happen. This hope becomes addictive, giving temporary relief from the pain of an avoidance emotional distance while keeping you stuck in an unfulfilling situation. Your brain releases feel-good chemicals not just when you get rewards from an avoidant, but when you expect them. With avoidant partners, you become addicted to expecting emotional availability, even when avoidants rarely deliver it in meaningful ways. The pattern becomes a cycle with avoidance. Emotional withdrawal creates anxiety, brief reconnection brings relief, and the cycle repeats. Your brain learns to connect this roller coaster with love itself, making stable relationships feel foreign compared to the intensity of avoidant dynamics. Another big factor in your inability to let go comes from fear of starting over after an avoidant relationship. Letting go of an avoidant partner often means facing the fear of beginning again, not just romantically, but emotionally and mentally. You may have built your identity around being patient with avoidance, understanding their need for space, and being emotionally giving despite their limitations. Starting over after an avoidant means facing uncertainty. With an avoidant partner, while the relationship may be unfulfilling, it becomes familiar territory. You know what to expect from an avoidant's patterns of closeness and distance. A new relationship after an avoidant represents unknown waters, requiring you to be vulnerable with someone new and risk experiencing another avoidant dynamic. The fear of being alone also plays a powerful role in keeping you attached to an avoidant. Many people would rather stay in an emotionally limited relationship with an avoidant than face being by themselves. Society often pushes the idea that being in a relationship, even with an avoidant, is better than being single. Your self-worth may have become tangled up with your ability to love an avoidant through their difficulties. Staying with an avoidant becomes proof of your worthiness, loyalty, and ability to love unconditionally. Leaving an avoidant might feel like admitting failure or showing that your love wasn't strong enough to change them. Sometimes the difficulty letting go of an avoidant comes from trauma bonding, when intense shared experiences, including emotional highs and lows, create powerful attachment. The cycle of closeness and distance with an avoidant can mirror trauma bonding patterns, where the same avoidant person who causes pain also provides relief. The intensity of emotional highs and lows with avoidance can create chemical addiction patterns. Your nervous system gets used to the dramatic swings between connection and disconnection that avoidance provide, making stable, consistent relationships feel boring or unfamiliar by comparison. You might also find yourself addicted to being the rescuer or healer of an avoidant. There's something deeply satisfying about believing you can save an avoidant from their emotional wounds. This savior mindset with avoidance gives you a sense of purpose and importance that can become intoxicating. Your identity becomes wrapped up in being the person who understands this avoidant when no one else can. To truly understand why you struggle to let go of an avoidant, you need to look at what drives avoidant behavior. Avoidant attachment usually develops as protection in childhood when emotional needs weren't met consistently or when showing emotions led to criticism or punishment. Avoidant individuals typically fear losing independence, emotional overwhelm, rejection if they show their true selves, and being controlled through emotional manipulation. These fears make sense based on an avoidant's past experiences, not character flaws or personal failures. Understanding these core fears of avoidance can help reduce blame and create space for compassion, both for your avoidant partner and yourself. An avoidant's emotional distance reflects learned survival strategies, not a reflection of your worth or how lovable you are. The avoidant person's childhood often involved caregivers who were physically there but emotionally unavailable, or who responded to emotional expression with criticism, dismissal, or withdrawal. Avoidants learned early that emotional needs were burdens and that depending on themselves was the safest path forward. Recognizing these patterns helps you understand that an avoidance distance has nothing to do with your value. An avoidance withdrawal comes from deeply rooted protective mechanisms developed long before they met you. How do you begin letting go of an avoidant? The process starts with a basic shift in focus, from analyzing the avoidant's behavior to looking at your own patterns. What draws you to avoidant partners? What childhood experiences might be influencing your attraction to avoidance? This exploration requires radical acceptance of your avoidant partner. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up or approval. It means seeing your avoidant clearly as they are now, not as they could become. This creates space for making decisions about the avoidant based on current reality rather than future possibilities. Building emotional independence becomes crucial when dealing with avoidance. Work on meeting your emotional needs through multiple sources: friends, family, hobbies, personal growth, and self-care. Reducing emotional dependence on one avoidant person makes it easier to make clear-headed decisions about the relationship. Look closely at your hope patterns with avoidance. Notice what triggers renewed hope and whether these triggers are based on real changes from the avoidant or small gestures that you're making bigger than they are. Track the cycle of hope and disappointment in your avoidant relationship to spot recurring patterns. Throughout this process, practicing self-compassion stays essential. Release self-judgment about why you're struggling to let go of an avoidant. This struggle reflects deep human needs for connection and often comes from wounds that developed during your growing up years. Sometimes the question doesn't center on whether you can let go of an avoidant, but whether staying with an avoidant has become a form of abandoning yourself. Ask yourself, are your basic emotional needs being met by this avoidant? Have you compromised essential parts of yourself to keep the avoidant relationship going? Are you growing as a person, or have you become smaller to fit an avoidant's comfort zone? Do you feel energized or drained by the avoidant relationship overall? These questions can give you clarity about whether your inability to let go of an avoidant serves your highest good or keeps you trapped in patterns that limit your growth and happiness. Your attachment to an avoidant may also come from believing that through your love and persistence, you can help heal an avoidant's attachment wounds. While this desire comes from a beautiful place of compassion, it often puts an impossible burden on your shoulders when dealing with avoidance. The reality is that an avoidance healing is an inside job. No amount of outside love, no matter how pure or consistent, can force an avoidant to face their deepest wounds. Avoidants must choose this journey for themselves, often through professional support and dedicated self-work. Your role as a partner to an avoidant cannot include being their therapist, mother, or savior. When you try to fill these roles with an avoidant, you accidentally enable their avoidance while exhausting your own emotional resources. You may find yourself walking on eggshells with an avoidant, constantly watching your behavior to avoid triggering their withdrawal. This constant alertness with an avoidant takes a huge toll on your nervous system. You become so focused on managing an avoidant's emotional state that you lose touch with your own needs and feelings. Your identity becomes mixed up with an avoidant's emotional well-being, creating an unhealthy codependency. An avoidant partner's emotional unavailability may also trigger your own abandonment wounds from childhood. If you experienced inconsistent caregiving, an avoidance push-pull dynamic feels familiar on a deep level. Your nervous system recognizes this pattern with avoidance as home, even though it causes tremendous pain. Understanding this connection helps explain why avoidant relationships feel so compelling despite their difficulties. You're not just attracted to this avoidant person, you're unconsciously trying to heal your own childhood wounds through them. The problem is that this approach with avoidance rarely leads to true healing. It often reinforces the original trauma patterns. Breaking free from this cycle with avoidance requires developing what's called earned security, the ability to give yourself the emotional stability and reassurance you once sought from inconsistent caregivers or avoidant partners. This involves learning to calm yourself during moments of anxiety about an avoidance behavior, setting healthy boundaries with avoidance, and developing an internal sense of worth that doesn't depend on an avoidance validation. The process of letting go of an avoidant also involves grieving, not just the loss of the relationship, but the death of the fantasy you held about what this avoidant could become. This grief is deep because it includes multiple losses: the avoidant relationship itself, your investment of time and energy in the avoidant, the hope for an avoidance transformation, and perhaps most painfully, the realization that love alone cannot heal an avoidant person's wounds. Allow yourself to feel this grief about the avoidant fully. Many people try to rush through the letting go process with an avoidant because the pain feels unbearable. However, avoiding the grief about losing an avoidant only prolongs the attachment. True release from an avoidant comes through feeling and processing these emotions completely. During this grieving process over an avoidant, you might experience what feels like withdrawal symptoms: trouble sleeping, loss of appetite, obsessive thoughts about your avoidant ex-partner, or a desperate urge to reconnect with the avoidant. These symptoms reflect the chemical addiction your brain developed to the avoidant relationship's highs and lows. Treat these withdrawal symptoms from an avoidant with the same compassion you would show someone recovering from substance addiction. Your brain needs time to readjust to a new baseline after being conditioned to an avoidant's unpredictable love patterns. Another crucial part of letting go of an avoidant involves looking at your relationship with control. Much of the suffering in avoidant relationships comes from your attempts to control outcomes, trying to make an avoidant more emotionally available, attempting to prevent an avoidance withdrawal, or working to convince an avoidant of your worth. True letting go means releasing this illusion of control over an avoidant. You cannot make an avoidant love you differently than they're able to love. You cannot force emotional intimacy with an avoidant or create genuine connection through effort alone. This release of control over an avoidant can feel terrifying because it means accepting uncertainty about where you stand with them. However, it also frees up tremendous energy that you've been using to manage an unmanageable situation with an avoidant. When you stop trying to control an avoidant's emotional availability, you can redirect that energy toward your own growth and healing. The journey of letting go of an avoidant often reveals your own attachment to suffering. Sometimes you stay in difficult avoidant relationships not despite the pain, but because of it. Pain from an avoidant can feel familiar and safe, especially if struggle characterized your early relationships. Looking at your relationship with suffering and avoidant dynamics requires honest self-reflection. Do you connect love with difficulty because of past avoidant relationships? Do you feel more valuable when you're needed to fix an avoidant? Do stable, peaceful relationships feel boring compared to the intensity of avoidant relationships? These patterns often develop in families where love was conditional, dramatic, or tied to crisis. If your childhood involved being the family mediator, caretaker, or emotional stabilizer for avoidant family members, you might unconsciously seek romantic relationships with avoidance that recreate these familiar dynamics. Healing these patterns involves learning to tolerate peace and stability in relationships after experiencing avoidant chaos. This might sound easy, but for many people, consistent love feels foreign and suspicious compared to an avoidant's unpredictable affection. Your nervous system might interpret emotional stability as a sign that something is wrong or that disconnection is coming, especially after conditioning from avoidant relationships. Building tolerance for healthy love after avoidant relationships requires practice and patience. Start by noticing when you feel anxious in peaceful moments after an avoidant relationship. Observe any urges to create drama or intensity when things feel too calm compared to the chaos of avoidant dynamics. Your inability to let go of an avoidant might also reflect perfectionism, the belief that if you just try hard enough, love purely enough, or understand deeply enough, you can create the relationship you desire with this avoidant. This perfectionist mindset keeps you trapped in endless cycles of effort and disappointment with avoidance. Perfectionism in avoidant relationships often comes from the childhood belief that you must earn love through performance. If your early caregiver's affection depended on your behavior, you learned that love requires constant effort and achievement, a mindset that makes you vulnerable to avoidant partners who seem to require earning their love. Releasing perfectionism with avoidance means accepting that some avoidant relationships cannot be fixed, no matter how much effort you invest. This acceptance doesn't mean giving up or failing. It's about recognizing the limits of your influence over an avoidant and honoring both your needs and an avoidant's autonomy. The path forward involves developing what's called differentiation, the ability to keep your sense of self while in close relationship with another person, even an avoidant. Differentiation means you can love an avoidant deeply without losing yourself in the process. In relationships with avoidance, differentiation becomes especially challenging because an avoidant's emotional distance triggers anxiety about the relationship's security. You might find yourself changing, adapting, or minimizing your needs to maintain connection with an avoidant. True differentiation allows you to say to an avoidant, "I love you deeply, and I also need emotional intimacy in my relationships. If you're unable to provide that consistently, I need to make choices that honor my needs." This statement reflects both love and self-respect, the foundation of healthy relationships, even when dealing with avoidant partners. Here's something paradoxical. Truly letting go of an avoidant, even while staying in the relationship, can transform the dynamic. When you release your attachment to changing an avoidant and your need for them to be different than they are, you often find more peace and clarity. The avoidant relationship might not improve, but you free yourself from the exhausting cycle of hope and disappointment that characterizes most avoidant dynamics. Letting go of an avoidant means accepting them as they are now, making decisions based on present reality rather than an avoidance potential, reclaiming responsibility for your own emotional well-being, and opening yourself to the possibility that love sometimes means walking away from an avoidant. Understanding why you struggle to let go of avoidant partners gives you valuable insights for future relationships. This awareness helps you recognize your patterns and triggers with avoidance earlier. Choose partners based on their current emotional availability rather than hoping to change an avoidant. Develop healthier responses to unpredictable love from avoidance, and build stronger boundaries around your emotional needs when dealing with avoidant individuals. The struggle to let go of an avoidant reflects normal human responses. Your attachment system evolved to keep you connected to others for survival, so it naturally resists letting go of important relationships, even with avoidants who provide inconsistent love. Your inability to let go of an avoidant often reflects your deepest longings for secure, consistent love. While avoidant relationships can teach you about patience, compassion, and unconditional acceptance, they shouldn't become your permanent home if they don't meet your fundamental needs for emotional intimacy and connection. True healing happens when you learn to extend the same patience and understanding you offered your avoidant partner to yourself. You deserve relationships where love doesn't feel like a constant uphill battle with an avoidant, where emotional availability is consistent rather than unpredictable, and where your efforts to connect are met with equal enthusiasm. Letting go of an avoidant doesn't mean giving up on love. It means choosing to love yourself enough to seek relationships that nourish rather than drain you. It means understanding that some people, including avoidants, enter your life to teach you important lessons about yourself, not to be your permanent companions. The real reason you can't let go of an avoidant has nothing to do with weakness or poor judgment. It's the beautiful, complicated human capacity for hope, love, and connection. Honor that capacity by directing it toward relationships, including the one with yourself, that have the potential to flourish in the rich soil of mutual emotional availability and genuine intimacy, rather than the unpredictable desert of avoidant love. In releasing what doesn't serve you, you create space for what does. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for your avoidant partner, is to let go. Have you ever found yourself unable to move on from someone who kept pulling away? Have you experienced that addictive cycle of hope and disappointment with an avoidant partner? Share in the comments what part of this journey resonates most with your experience and what strategies have helped you break free from these patterns. If this helped you understand that healing from avoidant relationship dynamics requires specific self-awareness and compassionate boundaries, like this video, and subscribe for more insights into the complex emotional patterns that shape our deepest connections. Thanks for watching.